Well, welcome to Planetary Health First, Mars Next. My name is Michael Mann. I'm the host, and I have Greg on here, and he is a super amazing individual, entrepreneur. Gosh, we're doing 5 M's today. I just want, before we get diving deep into it, Greg, if you want to just share a little bit about yourself, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I've been looking forward to this one. So Greg Vandyne, former Green Beret medic, got out in 2021 from active duty, spent 9 years in the military, went into med device sales when I got out of the military. And, I was an 18 Delta Green Beret medic, so it was a pretty natural fit for me to flow into medical device sales. It was either that or become a PA. And at the time, I had one kid and another on the way and needed to focus on building a career as opposed to going back to school. So decided to go the med device route. And that's kind of slowly evolved into, I got my feet wet at a startup and really enjoyed the entrepreneurial aspect of trying to build out a startup and really having a lot of autonomy over developing my own region. So that really has spurred me into going full time into entrepreneurship and, starting to build out the Vet Collective, which is a community for veterans that are interested in entrepreneurship, gives you mentorship, coaching, and just basically a community to rely on, because obviously entrepreneurship, as I'm sure you're aware, is can be a very lonely journey. And we wanted to sort of bridge that gap and be there for folks, especially veterans, as they're trying to endeavor into the entrepreneur space, just because it's such a the veterans make great entrepreneurs. They really do, and we want to make it more available and more accessible to veterans.
Have you been able to do any grants for that? It seems like any sort of national, federal grant would love the infrastructure, what you're doing.
That's something that we have not pursued. Something that's kind of been in the back of our heads. The whole grant process is, if there's any grant writers out there listening to this, feel free to hit me up, because I would love to work with you.
Well, I just say that because every day or every time I have someone on the show, I learn so much. Last week, we had an amazing guest I think it was 10 million non-diluted funding from grants like SBIRs and whatnot. And I think he shared, I just check out the most, I think it was 121, our episode, and there is a grant writer that's on that newsletter. So highly recommended by that founder. And so. Okay. I think you would be perfect with some of I know it takes a while. It's a long process, but obviously you have a business in place. So it just seems like such a great way to help the military, the vets, and then people transition into being successful. Today, I'd love to know, what is your biggest pain point that you feel as an entrepreneur? I'd love to, just give us a kind of your thought on that.
Ooh, my biggest pain point right now is that I've got my hands in a lot of different pots. So trying to figure out how to manage all of these different ventures for me has been extremely difficult. And so that is literally my biggest pain point right now, is making sure that I'm, making an impact on all the different projects that I'm having. And so one thing that I've been doing lately is like dedicating a day because the other thing is switching between contexts is like very difficult for me. And so I set aside each day for each one of my different projects where I'm like solely focused on doing the busy work that I need to do for that project, as opposed to switching multiple times throughout the day in between these different projects that really they're somewhat related, but not really.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's that deep thought or deep project work. Have you been able to utilize any sort of VAs or virtual assistants? It seems like that's a difficult thing. I know some entrepreneurs have been successful at that, to kind of take those tasks, those admins. Do you utilize those?
I don't, and I could use one for like handling my schedule. I think I'm probably getting to the point where I probably need to consider getting a virtual assistant. However, most of the stuff that I do is like pretty like high level. We're not like with my startup called Engage, like we're not out there really selling yet. We're still building out our MVP. We're selling, but we're not like hard out there, like, have calls set up like every single hour or anything like that. But so when we ramp that up, for sure, I think a virtual assistant would be huge. There's virtual assistants out there. There's a bunch of like military spouses. I think there's a military spouse virtual assistant like company that I'll probably tap into when and if I decide to go down that route.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, let's tackle the first M in the room, mental health. So what does that mean? You could ask 1,000 people and you get 1,000 different answers. What does it mean to you, and why is it so important?
Yeah. So, from my own struggles with mental health, coming out of the military, I talk about this quite a bit is, I was in special operations. Like that was my life. It was everything to me, was my identity. And stepping out of that role, especially during the height of COVID, was extremely difficult. So we're talking about a loss of identity, loss of purpose, and really a loss of community, because I could no longer, you're no longer, I was working with my, 10 best friends every single day. And now I'm going to working in an office or walking into an OR with a bunch of people that I don't know. So um, it was a very difficult time for me. And about a year into my transition, I contemplated suicide and ended up getting the help that I needed and got to where I am today. But it was so unnecessary. And so what I've done since then is really dedicated myself to trying to make sure that other people don't end up less people at least end up in the same position that I do, or I was, because it really is unnecessary. There's so many people out there that are willing to help and talk about mental health. You just got to be able to, you got to be willing to open up and talk about it. And that's what I preach is, you have to talk about it, and it's okay to talk about it. And as cliche it is, it's okay to not be okay. And because it's human. It's just part of being human.
Yeah, I think that's part of your forefront of your brand. You've done a really amazing job to be an ambassador to just opening up, having a conversation across all the platforms. I see that. And mindfulness, we're going to talk about as well. What is mindfulness? I know Buddhism has Vipassana meditation. I know there's all different. What is it to you? And kind of tell me how you're utilizing that to really help you.
Yeah. So for me, mindfulness is just about being where your feet are. Like that's really it, is sitting down and actually thinking about the present moment. And we're terrible at it. I'm terrible at it. I'm still terrible at it. I practice it every single day, trying to sit there and actually just sit and like be and not really think about anything else. My mind wanders, but I catch my mind wandering. And that means that I'm doing mindfulness correctly, or that means that you're doing mindfulness correctly. If you can catch yourself there, oh, I'm no longer thinking in this present moment. Like that means you're like improving at mindfulness. And the benefits are tenfold. I mean, it's going to reduce anxiety. It's going to help with depression. And mindfulness is great. I think mindfulness combined with exercise is like the gold standard. Like everybody needs to be practicing mindfulness and exercising. That's like, if you're struggling with your mental health, like that is like the easiest thing to just start doing that day. And you'll see improvements 100%.
So the mindfulness, is there any sort of school of thought, whether it be yoga or breathing exercises? Can you tell me a little bit from your journey and trying to figure out what works for you? Because I know that's like a big topic.
Yeah, there's so much noise out there too about like what you should be doing, and really at the end of the day is like, and this is what it comes down to, is you got to do what works for you and what feels right and what you enjoy doing. If like sitting there and like meditating on a yoga mat is just like painful for you and you hate doing it, then don't do it. But on the contrary, try to find something else that does work for you. Like maybe it's going out in nature and taking a hike and walking and just being alone with your thoughts. That might be what works for you. And then there's things like ice baths. I've done ice baths. I love them. I think they're cool. They're like, they're good for me. I don't know if it's just like a placebo or not, but it's something that you can do every single day, where it's like you get into an ice bath first thing in the morning and like the hardest part of your day is already out of the way. And so like just having that behind you is kind of like helps you build momentum going into the day. But I'm just such a big proponent of like, do hard things, challenge yourself. Like that's what's going to lead to a fulfilling and purposeful life. And so at the end of the day though, like when we talk about like mindfulness practices, there is no like gold standard. I don't personally believe there's a gold standard. As long as you're doing something to, keep your mind at peace and quieted and not always just constantly going.
Yeah, I love what you said with just the walks, like the yoga might not work for someone because I do pickleball and people are it's like so catching on is the stupidest thing is the greatest thing. So there's an element like I try to work myself up through the day, all day trying to work. I'm an entrepreneur too, working on my startup stuff, and I reward myself and that and yoga, but it's really for me it's about just getting that release, so that's the exercise. So I'm still trying to work on getting all those vitamin, like what I look at it is like what's my meat and potatoes and then the supplements, trying. And I think I have yet to do more than once or twice an ice bath. I need to try that. And this is great.
You don't need to.
Yeah, I want to try it because I think we're getting old. I'm getting old too. And I think there's something really powerful about all the physiological responses to that. So the other thing I love, when we do this, we always do a follow-up newsletter with this show with the different links. We put it up on our Substack. So I want you to keep a mindset of, as I'm talking with you, I want to put your companies, your websites, your resources, because that's, to me, the value to the community of people, when they see you and they know more what you're doing. Are there any books that have been really inspiring to you as an entrepreneur, or any recommendations today?
Yeah, my favorite book, hands down, when it comes to a mindset, and is It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad. He is a sports performance coach. He was a sports performance coach. He passed away a couple of years ago. I think it was prostate cancer. Anyways, early death, and ironically enough, I think it was the same thing that happened to his father. But it's the best book out there in my eyes, and it's all about neutral thinking. And so what it is, he uses a bunch of sports references. So like when the Atlanta Falcons were up 28-3, I think it was Mohamed Sanu, a player on the Atlanta Falcons, was like, yeah, it's 28-3, but they still have Tom Brady. And so like just them planting that negative thought into his mind, was into his team, and speaking that out loud was a trigger for his team to start thinking like a little bit more on the defensive and thinking like, okay, well, maybe we don't got this. So he always preaches like, no matter how good or how bad it is, you got to think neutrally, and what's going to be the next right decision that you have to make in order to get the result that you're looking for. And that's really what the whole book is about. But It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Moawad. That is like hands down my favorite book when it comes to mindset. Now, I will say like one thing recently that not recently, but in the last like 6 months to a year that I've like started to hammer in a little bit more is just like positivity, because me personally, and I think most people in general, like we are programmed to be negative. I think it's like something like 80 to 90% of our thoughts are negative. And I think, a ton of those are reoccurring. So like the more that you can program positivity into your mindset and just saying nice things about yourself. And I'm my own worst critic. So like, it's especially important for me to actually like sit there and be like conscientious about saying like, hey, Greg, like, you have done the X, Y, and Z, like you're doing great. Keep up the great work. Something just like encouraging, just like that. Even if it's, as silly as it sounds, as, inauthentic as it might sound, it does mean something. You're telling your brain something, and you're overriding any of that negative thought.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think there's so much research on our smiling, whether we're, I know when I need to go out there and get exercise and it's been 2 days, I'm like, I can see it on the podcast. I'm just like, not, it's the affect. But I loved how you already transitioned us into mindset with that book you were recommending. And it reminds me of when I've had in the past an entrepreneur. He was older entrepreneur. It was really cool. I think he was almost in his 70s, and he'd done 7 entrepreneur. Like he was more academic. But he said with the mindset, he would wake up knowing every day the shit's going to hit the fan, or however he said it, because by that he's ready. Like why are we set in life that we think all of a sudden that, there's no such thing as sunshine and lollipops all day long. I mean, if you're going to step out as an entrepreneur, you got to be ready for shit because you're solving
Oh,
big shit problems. So I wish I could articulate it better because he said it so succinctly. And that was when people actually were on Clubhouse. But it was just, it's those little nuggets of wisdom pearls that I just take. And I love when I get that. And so tell me about what it's like as an entrepreneur doing these things and what you do to keep your edge.
yeah, it's tough. The entrepreneurship space is, I mean, one, it's like not financially rewarding and for like at least the first little bit. And so like right now I'm in that era where it's like, very minimal revenue coming in. And so I'm just slogging through. And what helps me keep my edge is really like thinking about the qualitative improvements or the qualitative uh, achievements that I'm making and not focusing on those quantitative metrics. I think that's so important for early entrepreneurs is to really think about, okay, like, yes, you don't have all this money coming in, but you were able to achieve X, Y, Z. You've set all of these meetings, you've got a ton of people interested in investing. And so I think really focusing on the qualitative improvements and increments that you're making throughout your time as an early entrepreneur, and just like really for any new venture that you're going out in, because nothing is built overnight. That's for damn certain. And so I think that's really what's like kept me going, is focusing on what incrementally I'm doing from a qualitative standpoint.
I love that. It's about keeping with your vision, the right mindset, and making sure we don't get distracted by the wrong metrics. We got to put in the work. I've recently, I don't know where, I don't know who I heard it from. It was a real quick TikTok clip, but like you got to put in 4 hours or something a day to do outreach, sales, or however it be. But to me, we are it's the long term. It's the wrong, like we have to have those things in place because it's not overnight. And so we have to be disciplined and also I don't know. It's just mainly just trying to take away this, I don't know, the wishful thinking or just the short-sightedness. And I love how you said it's really about the right mindset, and whether it be the vision, the legacy, how you're making the impact. So it's metrics. So what do you do do you do that weekly, quarterly? Do you journal it? What do you have, a spreadsheet? What does that look like?
Yeah, for me, like I am probably not as organized as I should be. So for me, it's like all up in the old noggin. I'm just like constantly reiterating to myself, okay, like we've achieved. And so like one thing that I do is I bookend my days. So I wake up in the morning, I think about, okay, I have to do XYZ today, and really think through my day. What do I want to achieve? And then by the end of the day, I sit there and I'm like, okay, so I set out to achieve XYZ. Here's where I fell short. And it's really like an after action review for anybody that's from a military background. It's actually sitting down and thinking about how your day went, because nobody really does that. Not many people do, where you're actually sitting down and actually being, conscientious and deliberate about like assessing how your day went. I mean, people probably do that, like you're saying, like on a quarterly, basis. People sit down and journal. I think that's great. I personally don't journal a ton. I think it's something that I should probably get into more. But for me, it's all I feel like I can get the same out of just sitting there and like being alone with my thoughts, like whether it's just like while you're brushing your teeth at night, and thinking about how your day went and how it could have been better, where you were solid, where you fell short, and I think there's a ton that you can get out from that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you're saying about mindfulness. It's whatever works for, just doing it. Everyone has their different journey. Tell me what, like in 5 years, I know it's a grind, you're in the startup, but where's your your kind of your vision that keeps you motivated to where I know you have to be careful because it's quarter by quarter, day by day, but are you looking to would you like to be a more of on the venture side one day as an investor helping? Like, where would you like to be where you're at your legacy and impact stage?
Yeah, so everything that I do, like I always like I go back to what started me out on this entrepreneurship journey, which was, we started developing a mental health app that we were specifically going to building to help out veterans. Now we slowly pivoted away from that to what we were talking about before the show, which is, basically the Grammarly for personality insights. But we built that, and I always like will go back to like in 5 years from now, like I do everything right now to make money and support a lifestyle for myself and be able to support my family, so that like in 5 years from now I'm set up to just solely focus on building things that are going to help improve veteran mental health and reduce veteran suicide. Like that is what I want to do in 5 years from now, is like if I can like be 80 to 90% focused on solely reducing veteran suicide, that is what I want to be doing. So that's what keeps me going. I'm not sure if that's 5 years from now. I'm not sure if it's 10 years from now, but at some point, like that's where I like, a majority of my focus to be going.
That's awesome. Do you see yourself eventually using your efforts, investing in others, like monetarily, as startups of veterans? Because I mean, that's usually, I mean, I know it's way out there, but what if you could dream today, like just out there, whether it's real or not?
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to be like whether or not it's like a venture firm where I'm literally just like taking people's money and investing it into veteran, not necessarily veteran owned companies. I think that would be great, but people that are like specifically out there trying to help veteran or improve veteran mental health. That would be incredible. I think that would be like the best case scenario for me.
Mm-hmm. I had a guest on a few weeks ago who does, it's Enora. They do for TMS, transmagnetic stimulation, and 2 to 5 million veterans supposedly have chronic headaches. And what they're doing is working with the veterans by using some sort of technology with magnets that just disengage that. So I tell you, there might be a little far ahead for you right now, because I think they're on their Series A, but that would be, I'm sure, a company 5 years from now, going backwards or whatever, you would be like, let's do it.
Yeah, there's a company called Wave Neuroscience. He's Dr. Eric Wan. He's the CEO of that company. We actually had him on our podcast, and same transcranial magnetic stimulation. He actually, so funny enough, so I live 2 hours outside of Amsterdam, and the closest big city is called Maastricht, and Maastricht University is actually they're like the breeding ground for all new TMS innovation, which we learned on the podcast. So I'm actually in the process of trying to get a referral to receive TMS care over here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love how this is not scripted or planned. This is
Yeah.
how these are why we do these shows, right? You're a podcaster yourself. What is the favorite thing what do you love about podcasting yourself?
Ooh. It's the people. I mean, easy. That's got to be like the number one answer. We've gotten to meet so many incredible people through the podcast, and just hear about all the great things that they're up to, what they've done post-military, their entrepreneurial journey. It's been extremely rewarding to get to know all those people and be able to support them and get the word out on what they're up to. Some of these are, very new founders or entrepreneurs, and they're just getting their business off the ground. So it's nice to give them a platform to showcase what they're doing and put their brand out there. So I think, yeah, the people and just being able to help other veterans get their story out there.
Well, I am not a veteran. I get that because I was born and raised in Norfolk, lived in San Diego for 10 years, and have a shaved head. So people always ask if I was in the Navy. It's so funny, but I am big supporter. Thank you for all your service, man. I tell you, it's, I just played pickleball last night with a gentleman who's going to be coming out in 4 months. And I would love to tap him. He wants to be an entrepreneur and start his own business. So I would love to connect him to your network, but also there are plenty of people that I stumble across, and I hope that I can connect you that are veterans that are doing some really cool, awesome entrepreneurial stuff. So love what you're doing. Tell me, like, the biggest thing is everyone sees, like, you got your green shirt on. You're always a veteran. You're always, this isn't something, even though you retire, and you're a badass. I mean, you just already get the badass because you've saved lives. You trained. What does that look like? Like, it sounds stupid when you go in a gym and you see someone that's like 300 pounds, like, how much do you bench press? Tell us about your training and like what that looks like through, like, 10 years ago or 15 years ago to now. Just if you could capture that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I've been working out since, I was in middle school. So like I've always been like very, very active. And turning it on for my military prep was like a completely different ball game. And what we did in preparation for getting ready for, selection, which is in the Q course is it's pretty rigorous. So there's this program out there called SEAL Fit. It's ran by a gentleman named Mark Devine. He's a former Navy SEAL. And I mean, they're just like the most earth crushing CrossFit workouts that you could possibly imagine. And they're broken down, and I'm going to butcher like the different phases, but they're broken down into different phases. So there's strength is the first one, and then there's stamina, and then actually I might get this right. And then I think the last phase is endurance. So you had a strength workout, which is like actually like working on like, you would just do like a 5x3 set of squat or whatever. And then you'd have your stamina, which is actual CrossFit workout. And then endurance would be like that's like the real soul crusher. And that's like where you're doing like, buddy carries, crazy runs, crazy rucks, crazy swims. So yeah, there's a ton of preparation that goes into obviously becoming a Green Beret or any special operation, a part of any special operations community. And it is, if we have any young people listening that are interested in going into the military in the special operations community, like I've always looked at it as like the faster that you can move and the longest or the furthest distances that you can cover, like that's your best friend. Being able to move a really long distance at a very fast clip is the gold standard. Like that's what you need to be able to do, is move really far, really fast, and with a lot of weight on your back. So that's always my advice, is just get a ruck on your back and start huffing. And I think that's actually, there's what's Peter Attia is, a longevity doc that people probably are familiar with. And he is a huge proponent of rucking. Cause I think it gets you it's like enough. It's difficult enough from a strength standpoint, cause you're like building strength by having, heavy weight on your back. But you're also like at the like perfect heart rate, to be burning fat and building muscle. So yeah, if anybody out there is like looking for a new workout routine, like put a heavy backpack on your back and start walking.
I love what you said about that, because it's so accessible. There's so many things that aren't accessible. Like you can start with just a little bit of weight and it's walking, and then you can go faster. And then there's community. I couldn't believe it. I was in DC many years ago and I was like, what the hell's going on? It was like 8:00. There was some rock, whatever event through the city. And I was like, I guess there's real, like the marathoners, all these groups have their tribes and different events, but there's something that was happening like 5 years ago in DC. And I guess they go to different cities and just do the whole city, right? Do you know about that?
No, I mean, I've heard of like organizations that, is it a ruck march?
Well, yeah. So it didn't look like it was like, the rock and roll marathon. It wasn't like that, but it was at least 30 to 60. I mean, it was organized. I mean, and they were all like jamming out at like, it's dark, and they were doing DC. And I was like, this is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm 100% sure that there's organizations out there that are doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to add that to the thing. Cause I hate running. Like what we've been talking about. I love pickleball. I need to do more yoga. I need to do more core strength, but I should add that other thing. And I need to swim. I hate swimming, but I surf, but that's another thing. Tell me who inspires you, like podcasts you dial into, just to keep that, like, you just moving forward to your vision.
Yeah, I think one podcast that Kevin Seif and he's my co-host on our podcast Hard Not Smarter. He and I often listen to Chris Williamson. I think that's a great podcast. He's got a lot of I'm a philosophy major, so like I really enjoy philosophical conversations, and he always seems to bring a pretty good philosophical spin to everything that he puts out there. So to be honest with you, I don't listen to like a ton of podcasts. I'm so busy like trying to put together my own that I don't end up listening to too many. But that's one that I definitely will tune into every once in a while. Um, and then in terms of like inspiration, like I think the people that are around me, like I look up to Kevin. I look up to one of my other business partners, Bo Barron. So there's a bunch of people that I actually like work with on a daily basis that I look up to and I respect, and I seek their counsel on a regular basis. Just having like your own little board of directors as an entrepreneur, it doesn't have to be tied, officially to any of your business or anything like that, but just having somebody like a team that you like go to regularly just to talk to and get feedback and do a little sanity check for you. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I have a good buddy of mine too. We are totally different, like spectrum on the political thing. It's just everything, and it's just it like you're crazy, Mike. What are you talking about? I'm like, darn, because I get that all the time from my wife, and that's my wife. I have to. She supports me too, but like you got to have different perspectives to get some feedback. So this has been awesome. I'm so glad we got you on. Love what you're doing. And your podcast, I'd love to see more of it. But the little that I've seen, I guess through LinkedIn, you do some of that via video when you share clips or shorts. You guys have some really good chemistry. You make it highly engaging. Like it is clear that you guys respect each other. You value each other. And as I'm doing this, I'm on my 100th, you will be my 120, whatever, one or two episode. But what I found, and I'm doing panels as well, it is not easy to do
No.
this. And it's not the technical stuff, it's not, that is part of it, but the actual to sustain the content, to make it interesting. And it can be a grind. So what I've learned is if you aren't like intrinsically motivated by this, it's not the likes, it's not the quick whatever. And I do think there are people that are in this business, Greg, that are buying stuff. What I mean buying likes,
Yeah,
followers, because you know
100%.
what? I did not know it, but until recently, I was like, are you kidding me? They're all Chinese companies. And I'm like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Like 30 or like less than $100 you can buy. I was like 1,000, 2,000 YouTube. Are you kidding me? So it's like, and some of these individuals, like I know following and all this is part of these metrics, but I don't know. I've never been big. Like, have you ever seen Joe Rogan or like Lex talk about their following count? I mean, I feel like there's almost something against as a pod. It's like I'm so radically against that. I think, of course, there's two parts when you start trying to, I don't want to say monetize, when you try to get people on. The first thing, if there's at a certain status, well, how many subscribers? What's your audience? Blah, blah, blah. I find it so frustrating. Just listen to our stuff. If you're the right fit, maybe not. But it's like, and I'm sorry I'm ranting, but
No, I like it. I like
I
it.
just find the reality is it's content. We are making this as we're flying it. And so that I feel like is the unmissed, unseen power of the podcast. And this is why all the news medias are going down the tube, because they just don't have that. You're creating something with your buddies, something, and that's what I've tried to do with Planetary Health First, Mars Next, because it means everything and nothing. I do want to do some stuff with global health. I mean, how can we talk about healthcare if we don't have clean air? And there is some stuff about space and planetary and health tech and med tech. And just good shows. So, the dumbest thing I've done with a business is done something where there's no niche. All right, but I'm creating it. We're bringing a new person on our team soon that we're going to be announcing. She's amazing, kind of like you, just been in like a lived experience that you just can't get. And I'm so glad we're going to be collaborating with her, doing more panels. See, what I love to do, Greg, is I love to allow super amazing people like you on, and then as panels, and just be quiet and just let that. And that's what I've realized. So I'm trying to get more off the air and get more people on there. And I'll stop because I just took 2 minutes, and you go.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like that's my exact thoughts is, I mean, it'd be super easy to go out there and buy a bunch of bots to be your follower. And I don't know. I don't know what the optics are on that. I mean, it would probably look kind of fishy. If like all of a sudden overnight, you're like just crushing it. But like at the end of the day, like it means nothing because those aren't engaged. Like they're not engaged followers. They're not actually listening to your podcast. Like there's no real benefit other than like it might make you feel better about your following. But I think that at the end of the day, like your mentality has to be, I think with the podcast is like, if I can reach one person with this episode and like, and help somebody out like on their way, I think that's a win. Mm-hmm. Right. That's enough ROI for 60 minutes spent doing a podcast. But then the hope is that over time, like you grow that and you grow your following and that more people are impacted by the people that you're having on and the stories that you're putting out there. So yeah, you're 100% spot on. And it's super frustrating to see. I think there's one podcast out there.
Don't mention the name.
I'm not going to mention the name. I'm not going to mention the name.
Yeah. Disparaging it. So anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm just, there's like, but I've recently where I looked at it, I was like, that's fishy, like that. That's not like, yeah.
So what I feel good is like, I have different ways to do it and I'm going to grow in different ways. I have found really good response with Substack as my kind of holder for podcasts. And I believe it's because of the network effect. So you have other content creators. So I would highly recommend that as another. It's free. You can put it up there. It's really easy. So I continue to grow and I look at their actual subscribers, but other stuff, it's like I can't get any love on X. Ever since Elon Musk took it over, it just died, but I don't, it is what it is. That's the other thing. You might grow on Instagram with this, but you might not on this, and LinkedIn every day changes their algorithms. I don't know. So, anyway, I find it fascinating. And the thing that I get frustrated by is the questions of the reach, the engagement, and all these sort of impressions. I get it, or those metrics, but in the end, right now where I'm at is I'm like you, man. I have huge legacy, impact, vision, dreams, and then the journalistic itch. This is the whole thing in 1999 when the internet happened and you have all these bloggers that we're not going to use a Yahoo account, right? or say that we're a blog. I would argue podcasts are dead. I mean, the whole thing that is a podcast now, once you start pushing that, it's whatever it is. It's however it is, it's a new medium. And so, I don't know what phase we're in, but it's still people want to connect. You and I are connecting in a way, and others hopefully can share this in a way because of this digital thing. I wish I could be sitting with you in Amsterdam, maybe not doing something, but we're here today through the internet. And then I'm going to post I'm going to go through the transcript and I'm going to glean all these little nuggets. And it might take me a little longer than I want, but it's worth it to me, and I believe to someone else, because what you shared about the seal fit, one podcast that inspired you. So we got about like 7 minutes left. I want to be really aware of your time because you got a lot of stuff going on. Where do we want to go this year, 2024, 25, Greg?
Ooh, that's a good question. 2024, 2025. Well, I will say, like, for Engage, that's like one of the things that I'm focusing, a lot on right now, which is, again, it's the Grammarly for personality insight. So it's going to translate your message as you're sending it out, like via email or WhatsApp or whatever it is, and it's going to translate it or optimize it to be best received by the recipient and their personality type. So that is one thing that we are, we're coming out with our MVP, our production MVP on 10/1. We already have 11 clients that are lined up, 11 small businesses that are going to be purchasing. So that's really exciting. So just, continuing to push the needle there. Fortunately, we've been able to bootstrap the entire thing. I think that is like really our goal is to be able to not take any funding. So, we're entertaining conversations with venture capital firms just to, start the conversation. But that's exciting for me. That's what I want to see grow because again, like that if that's like my cash cow, the thing that enables me in 5 years from now to be able to focus 80 to 90% of my time, my working hours on reducing veteran suicide, like that's a win for me. So that's what I want to see the rest of 2024 and into 2025.
That is awesome to have like 10 to 11 pre-booked clients, pre-product. Dude, that is like perfect iCore. For those who don't know iCore, I don't anyway, that's a, program that highly recommends. It's through the NSF, I guess. Forgive me if I'm wrong or need to be corrected, but they really highly encourage you to go out there and do customer discoveries with all the different players. And you obviously did something to that degree to get that stickiness. So hats off to you. That's really how to do it. Awesome.
Yeah, that was one piece of advice that we got early on is, 200, you're not ready to start selling until you've had 200 to 300 conversations uh, with potential customers. So that's the advice that we took to heart, and we ended up doing that. And oddly enough, what happens along the way is that people will catch on to your idea and they love it, and then you stay in contact with them, and they end up being selling or signing letters of intent, and then you actually have people lined up for you to go to market with.
I love that. Do you have a template that you developed from that after a while, like you were actually iterating that you got that really well down to like 25 minutes or 30 minutes with that individual or that persona, and what those like 7 to 12 questions are? Did you get that?
No, I think that the problem with us like trying to really narrow that down is like we are in the community, like we're in a field that is optimizing communication, and like literally what was difficult for us was to narrow in on who exactly we're helping. We want to be like a ubiquitous part of like we want like when you're texting on your phone to have like the Engage application running in the background that's going to allow you to optimize based on, and like we want to have a repository of personalities so that everybody has their personality inside Engage and is able to communicate with each other best. So that I think that was challenging to narrow down the number of questions or like to
Mhm.
specific questions. There's definitely questions that we asked like in every single meeting, but we really let the conversation take us because people have great ideas. And what I didn't want to do is like what we didn't want to do is like go in there scripted
Mhm.
and not give them the opportunity to. And if we knew it was going out of bounds, like we would be like, all right, let's dial this back in, and like that's just not a route we're going to go down. But yeah, I think keeping it free flowing was important for us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's really an open, you don't want to lead the jury. You don't want to lead the witness, I guess is the statement. Otherwise, you're going to get you are just kind of opening it up. So from that discussion, the idea is after you've interviewed so many, you're starting to find a Venn diagram, that concentric, that circle. Wow, we got something here. I mean, right?
Yep.
That's the eureka. Cool, cool. That's awesome. So what are you doing on the media front? Do you how's that working? Tell me about how you do that time. I see you have a media company as well.
Yeah, so Kevin and I help out with social media management, content creating, ghostwriting for veteran-owned companies. We still have a couple of clients, but we're really actually going to be pivoting that into small business acquisition. So we're going to start acquiring businesses, and so that's what's taking up a majority of our time with Harder Not Smarter. a holding company. So we're not moving away from H&S Media, but that's more of the podcast now. So we do still like promote brands, and we have sponsors that pay for our newsletter and the podcast. So that's like more of the media side of things at this point.
I like that. Why not? If Warren Buffett can start Berkshire Hathaway, and he hit Berkshire Hathaway, which was a little textile company in Massachusetts, was failing miserably, and that was probably one of his worst investments. A lot of people don't know that, but he's done all right, I think. And he's got a holding company. Most people don't realize he's probably not, this is going to sound crazy, but he's not that great of an extraordinary investor. What he really is, he's this extraordinary allocator of cash flow. When you have 70 plus, 80 plus businesses that are kicking out cash, and you're able to buy stocks and get the most grazing deals when you have money, like Goldman Sachs, can you believe that? Like during 2007, 2008, Goldman Sachs was like needing a loan of $5 billion, or they're going to shit the canner. And on his flip phone, he was able to say, all right, I'll give you this, but I want this and this and that. So anyway, he is a holding company. And what is he able to do? He's able to write off, move the money there to that company. You can be really predatory, or you can be great. I don't know anything more about a holding company other than I'd like to one day do that. That's my hope, because I believe there's nothing more powerful and making an impact legacy if you can support businesses. And I believe if you have the suite of solutions, and you can do it smartly, like, man, you have a powerful force. So anyway, I wouldn't have said that on the show if you hadn't have said yours. Yeah. So that's awesome. So are you getting LPs to do that holding company, or is it just solely you and your partner?
It's solely Kevin and I at this point. Not opposed to that, but I think right now we're just it's just the two of us.
But a media company is good because every company needs that solution. So I would highly recommend you keep that and that solution to those companies that you acquire, or who knows? Anyway, what do I know? I'm not Warren Buffett, but I'm a big fan of that. But anyway, him. So anyway, I think you did a great job sharing to our audience, your big thing with what you're doing. Any other things that if they saw you and wanted to reach out, how, tying those, connecting those dots?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to set up like a networking call for anybody that's interested in hearing more about what I'm up to. If they just want to, I'm just a big fan of networking, and so I get in front of more people, hearing how we can help each other out. Like always open to a coffee chat. So please reach out to me, and always happy to chat.
And how can someone help you out if they hear about you?
Ooh, you can give me a follow on LinkedIn. You can engage with my stuff. Give the Harder Not Smarter podcast a follow, and help out veterans. I think that's if you have an opportunity to help out a veteran, go do it.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Greg, for coming on. You've been an amazing guest. It's been cool to get to know you, even though we've not met yet in person, but this has been awesome.
Someday.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. It was great being on here, and really grateful for the opportunity.